Hey everyone, it's Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. It's Monday. Aaron Rodgers is signed, so let's break more into it because we now have his contract numbers, what they say about what the Steelers think about him, and what the Steelers might be planning to do with the rest of their salary cap space this season. We look at that and a lot more questions here. Joined by Josh Taylor today. It's going to be a fun one. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. All right, fans. Let's give a big welcome back to our man, Josh Taylor, over at KDKA TV. Always great to have Josh on the show. Josh, nothing big happened at the end of last week, right? No big news or big signings. It's all the same here for the Steelers this week.
Let me put it to you in the perspective of a former sports anchor turned news anchor. I was getting ready to anchor the 4 o'clock news on Thursday. Just a normal Thursday, no big deal. Just get ready for the anchor 4 o'clock news. It's around 3:30. So by that point, I'm getting myself dressed to make sure my tie's going to get my makeup together. And one of our promotions people comes over and goes, "Hey, can you come shoot a quick promo about Aaron Rodgers for us before the 4?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
What are you talking
I hadn't
about?
heard that. And he goes, "You didn't hear?" I go, "No." He goes, "The Steelers they're going to sign Aaron Rodgers." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" So I have to run around and get everything done because now instead of just going straight to the studio, I have to stop in the newsroom and shoot a quick promo and then run into the newsroom and anchor the 4 o'clock news. And that was our opening story. I'm like, who would have ever thought in a million years I would be A, anchoring the news, and B, when the Steelers signed Aaron Rodgers. So if you're going to talk about surreal, that's the surrealest Thursday got for me.
It is. I said it on the show. Also, for the record, I appreciate those who said happy birthday to me. But when I said happy birthday to me, that it happened before I had to record my show. It was me just saying, I'm just so glad I didn't have to redo my entire show like you and I have had to do before, Josh.
I thought about you.
I was waiting, man. I was waiting. I was like, I know it's coming. I know it's coming. And there it is. I was like, finally got one right. And so
I'm just glad it wasn't me when you were doing the show with us.
Oh, that'd have been rough. But now that we know he's in, we did get contract details, and these are, from what we understand, official. The Steelers are. Aaron Rodgers said on the Pat McAfee show about a month or two ago, whenever it was he talked to them, he said, "I'll take $10 million. It's going to be $10 million," and that's exactly what he's getting in guaranteed money. Now he is getting a little bit extra throughout the season, so $10 million is guaranteed. Like if he pulls a 2023 Jets, if he runs out with the flag at Acrisure Stadium and tears his Achilles, that's the only money he'll get. But if he plays the whole season, he will get $3.65 million in just accrued, salary stuff throughout the year. And then he has about $5.85 million worth of playtime and team performance incentives. So that means one thing. So his cap hit should roughly be about $13.6 million, 13.65. And then he can earn a bit more if he plays the whole season. And then also, I'm assuming with the team performance incentives, that might be getting to the playoffs, winning a playoff game, winning a Super Bowl, et cetera, like those types of things. But ultimately, Josh, I know, like Aaron Rodgers, when I started the free agency process, Aaron Rodgers was down my list. He wasn't even a guy that I was like, they better not end up with him. And then Justin Fields has gone up. They don't want Russell Wilson back up there. Okay, so he's really the only option left unless you want to start Mason Rudolph. And I looked at that and I was like, I guess that's going to be. But the question was, could they get him under a reasonable number? And to me, a $13.6 million salary cap for what Aaron Rodgers is right now, I think that's reasonable to say the least.
I think that's what you hope for. I mean, you're talking low teens for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and we know his recent history as far as contract negotiations and what he's commanded. We're talking about some of the biggest numbers ever doled out for a quarterback, pre that Joe Burrow contract, we saw for like Justin Fields and guys or not Justin Fields, for Jalen Hurts and guys like that. We knew that his history suggested, hey, he might be a little too rich for most teams' blood. So to hear 13 and a half plus, just a shade over 13 and a half million, I think that's probably what Omar Khan would be very hopeful for and probably not argue with in a million years. He's probably looking at that number saying, don't threaten me with a good time. So To get that kind of number, I think that's right in the Steelers' comfort zone. And it sounds like there was a really strong desire for him to want to play in Pittsburgh, and he didn't want to demand a lot of money. And bear in mind, the Jets are paying him a pretty nice penny to go away. Because it was the same case we made last year about Russell Wilson. Well, Denver paid him to go away. Well, the Jets did the same thing with Aaron Rodgers, so it made it more palatable this time around, just like last time with Russell Wilson.
So that's the thing. So you get that there. So now the question, probably someone asking, okay, Chris, well, what does that do for their salary cap numbers? Now, presuming that it's just the 13.65, as we saw was reported, that gives them about $18.2 million in cap space to use. Now, typically, at least by the Kevin Colbert standards, which I think Omar Khan has upheld, the Steelers usually try to keep around $8-ish million going into the regular season as emergency funds, so that, like, if a player gets hurt and they need to sign somebody else or trade for somebody else, they have wiggle room with their cap space. And being the cap specialist that Omar Khan has always been, I assume that's probably going to stay the same. So you're probably thinking the Steelers have about $10 million in cap space to go get somebody. And that means, to me, they're going to go get somebody. Now, it might not be the superstar. Like, again, I said last week, everyone who's really hyped about Terry McLaurin, don't do it to yourself. He's probably going to sign back with the Commanders. That's a whole ploy. They're probably just back and forth negotiating a contract. The Commanders got the money. They were just in the NFC championship game. Terry McLaurin was a huge part of why they were in the NFC championship game. They've got a second-year quarterback. They want to strike while the iron's hot. They are going to pay Terry McLaurin. He's not going to come off the table. But the Steelers do have other options that I think are very reasonable. Free agent-wise, we've talked about him. Amari Cooper, of course, coming off his last year with the Bills. Keenan Allen coming off last year with the Bears. He has a great career with the Chargers. And the Steelers last week brought in Gabe Davis for a physical. He left without a contract. But again, as I said last week, I don't think that they were going to commit to a wide receiver plan until they had Aaron Rodgers in, had him in for mini camp, and then had a real – it's less even about Aaron Rodgers. It's about seeing how Aaron Rodgers works with Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, DK Metcalf, that crew of wide receivers. And then they'd say, okay, what kind of fourth wide receiver we want to add to that trio? Do we want to add a guy that's definitely bona fide wide receiver 2 next to Metcalf? Do we think one of those guys, Austin or Wilson, take a step up this year, and we want to get another guy that can kind of just be a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4? And to me, that's what the Steelers are probably still trying to figure out right now.
That's exactly where my mind is. And there's also a hidden variable, if you will, in all of this, as we're talking about how much cap space the Steelers may have free. There's a name on that roster who still has a situation that hasn't been resolved yet.
Very true.
And after we hear about the end of those discussions or the result of those discussions about TJ Watt's potential extension, you're talking about more money they could add on to cap space for this year. They might add another $10 million or so as far as cap space for this year by extending TJ Watt. This is something that still is lingering, and this is why I think it's important for 2 different reasons. One, of course, you want TJ Watt extended long term for the Steelers, of course. But the second thing is, this helps your salary cap situation because you can kick some of that money down the road. So it helps you in that particular end too. But I'm on the same page you are. This gives them an opportunity to A, figure out what they have. B, see if somebody starts to change their song a little bit in the next month or two. Because remember, we're close to June 1st. Mm-hmm. So now there's some guys that might be signed to bigger deals. That'll be, more cap savings for the team that are trading them away once they do that. So there's a little bit more for teams to play with, more incentive maybe to move a guy on where they're not, or the team that's acquiring the player isn't eating as much of the cap going into next season. So all that stuff comes into play. So now I'm with you. Figure out what you have first. Figure out what works. And if there's a guy you think that could fit also in the midst of what you already have, you're in a good spot to try to make that move too.
Absolutely. I want to talk more about those other options there that are available to do those things that you and I are talking about for the Steelers by adding. And let's be clear, if they're adding someone, it's got to be wide receiver 2. Or at least a wide receiver, period. I don't see them adding another corner at this stage, another safety, another linebacker. And maybe they do. That would catch me off guard, I have to admit. But wide receiver is the clear need. That's what we'll focus on in the next segment, and who does well either with the Steelers or Aaron Rodgers or both. We'll talk about all those options next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Josh Taylor, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you this show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. They're your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year only at Monarch Money. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter with Josh Taylor of KDK TV. Josh, let's talk about these other wide receiver options. Now, I brought up Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Gabe Davis, the 3 free agents there. But there's a very obvious name that a lot of people are saying, hey, the Steelers could go get that guy, who they probably could go get for a 7th-round pick. And that, of course, is Allen Lazard, the 6'5", 30-year-old receiver with the New York Jets. He has a long history of playing with Aaron Rodgers. In fact, he was the one that brought him to the Jets in 2023 to work with him. He's still on the Jets roster. He also played with Aaron Rodgers with the Packers. So they have time and experience with them. And I look at that and I say, okay, I see what we're getting at there. But again, I think this goes into, who do you think you need as the Steelers right now? Do you just need a big body to line up on the outside because you're trusting Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin or both to be really, really good, smaller, quicker, faster wide receivers? Or do you really want a playmaker to just add to the wide receiver room wherever they line up? Because to me, those are two different things. And Allen Lazard falls into the former, where he'd be fine. He's 6'5". He can be a big bodied guy to line up on the outside and be a nice big threat outside the numbers. But Allen Lazard, to me, is not going to change this offense by that much. If they want to go get a guy that will, I think they should look for someone who it's less about fitting directly with Aaron Rodgers right now, but more so fits in with their wide receiver plan for the future.
Yeah, I'm leaning more playmaker if I have to choose between playmaker and big body. And I say that for 2 reasons. One, I think you make a great case about Allen Lazard and what, how the net result may not be what you're looking for. But the other thing is, you always have to think about your wide receiver 2 in relation what could go wrong with wide receiver 1. Let's say we get to a situation where DK Metcalf is double teamed.
Yep.
You're going to need somebody else to be able to step up and make plays. And it might just be a guy that can make plays downfield. You might need a guy to become kind of a quasi-possession receiver. Because if your wide receiver 1's double, that means someone else is going to be open, whether it's your wide receiver 2, your tight end, your slot guy. Someone else is going to be open, and you need somebody else that can just be reliable enough. Hey, you're one-on-one, boom, we're coming to you. Because if you're tied up here, you're the guy we're going after. And I'm going to make a really old reference I know some people really get excited about, but let's go back to the Plexico Burress Hines Ward days. Mm-hmm. There were times when Hines Ward was just remarkably open, but a lot of it was because Plexico Burress would draw double teams. And that was one of the things you look at and say, okay, and to the Steelers' credit, they were able to exploit that quite often. And that reliability with Hines Ward also started to spill into third downs as he got later in his career. So you want a guy that not only can exploit double teams if DK Metcalf gets exploited, but you also want somebody that can be reliable enough to say, hey, they might try to take him out of this play. We need to go to somebody in the third down. Who's our reliable guy? If we can't get to DK, we got to get to somebody else we can get it to. Is it Pat Freiermuth with an empty set? Possibly. We don't know. But it would be nice to know if that guy is a receiver as opposed to just hoping it's your tight end all the time. Because when you get too reliant on one guy, that's when your lack of depth can be exposed. That's when your lack of playmakers can be exposed. And maybe that's when your quarterback's tendencies or the things that he leans on can get exposed and things go in the wrong direction. I
agree. I think that's the thing, is that they need somebody who can win when given those one-on-one opportunities. That's one reason that I think Nick Farabaugh has agreed with me on this. Keenan Allen is an interesting target for me. Not that Keenan Allen's a game breaker, but he is a technician of a route runner. He'll get open. So if you leave him one-on-one with a guy who's definitely not their number one cornerback, I could see that being a guy where he's like, hey, I'm going to toast whoever that is, so I'll be open. And Aaron Rodgers is a guy who when he sees a matchup he likes and he sees the open, that's what he's going to bring to the table. He's not going to be super fast. He's not going to be, ridiculously athletic anymore. He's going to have lost a step, but he still has that Aaron Rodgers brain that for all the other topics that he talks about, football, he could definitely still process at a high level. And I think that's where Aaron Rodgers is going to be really interesting with the Steelers to see, can he bring that field command presence that he has had for most of his career. Again, when you look at his numbers, he has the best all-time interception percentage of a quarterback that with qualifying stats as many throws as a lot of these franchise guys. He has the best average air yards per attempt of all time. He also has the best passer rating of all time. He's also been sacked the most of all time, but that's another thing. But those are three interesting efficiency stats that we'll get to in a minute more in the next segment. But to me, that's why you want to get somebody who can win more on their own and one-on-one. And that's why that should be the priority. I think it should be less about, hey, Aaron, you just want us to sign one of your friends or someone that you think knows you, or, hey, Aaron, we're going to go get you a dude who's going to get open most of the time. That's what we're prioritizing right now. And
get open quickly.
Yes.
That's because there's something else that you hate to call it the elephant in the room, but it's true. You're talking about a 42-year-old quarterback who, by the way, has gotten very good and gotten very adept at getting rid of the ball quickly.
Mm-hmm.
3 seconds, it's gone. And that's something that's important for a 42-year-old quarterback who had an Achilles injury less than 2 years ago. That's something important. And it's something that should resonate a lot here because it's the same thing we saw the quarterback that was in his prime here and had the prime of his career here not too long ago. That's the thing that really unlocked all of it. And this is one thing we don't give a lot of credit to Todd Haley for, and we should. Todd Haley told Ben Roethlisberger, you need to get the ball out faster. You get sacked a lot. You were one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league. I know you're big. You can take a lot of hits, but get the ball out quickly. And when Ben Roethlisberger started doing that, a lot of things opened up for him, and his numbers really started to just stack up a lot faster. Aaron Rodgers has really embraced that in the latter part of his career. And you mentioned most sacked quarterback of all time. What's the best way to alleviate that? Get the ball out fast, especially with a hopefully improved offensive line. But another thing that makes that easier is a guy that can get open in that short window that your quarterback has to where he says, okay, I know he's going to be here when this point happens. Get the ball out, get it to that spot, and get him in open space.
Agreed. I think, again, that's what's key here. So, when you look at some of those names there, the two names that pop out to me are Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen. Those are the guys that are available there. Again, we're bringing up Allen Lazard because he could be had for a very cheap trade from the Jets, but that's not Allen Lazard's specialty, nor is that Gabe Davis's specialties. Gabe Davis is more of a guy that's going to win the jump ball downfield, be the big play guy, and that's fine. But I think that what you want is a guy who's going to, again, win quickly in his routes. And that's where it's going to be interesting to see what kind of receiver do you go get. Now, other names that we've seen thrown out, like I said before, Terry McLaurin, I don't see that happening unless Terry McLaurin really does go nuclear on the Commanders for whatever reason. That would be a very unlikely and bizarre situation. And if you get to those roads, okay, yeah.
I'd love it. I'd love to see it.
Right.
I'd love to see it. But do I expect it? No. But it'd be fantastic if it did.
Exactly. Another person that I've seen their name thrown around a lot, that the Steelers should go get, is DJ Moore with the Chicago Bears. And listen, I get the logic in that the Bears have now selected two very high pick wide receivers in back-to-back years to work with Caleb Williams. You got Romeo Odunze last year. You got Luther Burden this year. But here's a big problem with that. They just signed DJ Moore to a mega contract last year. He is in the second year of a deal. He's 28 years old. He's a $24.9 million cap hit this year. If they were to get rid of him, unless the Steelers took all that money, they'd have $60 million in dead money over the next 4 years. I don't think the Bears are trying to eat that right now. I think they want DJ Moore for their young rookie quarterback. So I don't think DJ Moore is a guy who's going to be going to be on the table. So that being said, I think you need to look at guys who can maybe be had for a better deal. Of course, a lot of people want to bring up Brandon Ayuk. Personally, I was off the Brandon Ayuk train last year. Consider me still off it this year. I don't think that's gonna happen. To me, you got to go again, try to find somebody who can win early in their routes and see if someone's available like that. And maybe they try to go back down the Cortland Sutton route. Maybe they try to go back down another route. But to me, the key is going to be, if you want to make a trade, you're trying to find someone that's towards the end of their contract, won't that the a team is willing to get rid of and is going to help you in that specific area. And that's where I think the sweet spot's got to be for the Steelers.
Sounds like you're trying to get rid of the Mr. Krabs meme there, Chris. Sounds like you're trying to just.
I am. I don't want to do the Mr. Krabs meme anymore. I don't want it, Josh. I just get it out of my life. Get it out of my life. And I know it's going to be back next year, but just stop it, please. I would love to have to not post that anymore.
Everybody's got a signature, Chris. You got to embrace it. That's your thing.
I got Yoshi Bonks. I don't need Mr. Krabs.
Point taken. Point taken. That's true. You got a point.
But your point though is that it's that was the thing. But and listen, I don't think it's going to end just with this year unless they trade for like a guy who they expect to be around for the next 2-3 years, and then it would be like okay. So that to me is the question the Steelers have. Do they really just want to get a guy that appeases Aaron Rodgers? Do they want to get a guy whose skill set matches both with Rodgers, Metcalf, and their plan moving forward? And is this more of a one-year rental guy because that's what Cooper or Allen would be, or would this be a move to try to get somebody and get ahead of it? As I've brought up before, and you were kind of talking about as far as guys getting, we're getting further into the offseason. June 1st is past now. Now teams that they might have a receiver who's good, but they're like the Steelers with George Pickens, they might be like, we don't know if we want him to be our long-term guy. Let's work out a deal. That's the sweet spot that Omar Khan has to find somewhere in the NFL, because if he finds the right one, that could be DK Metcalf, player X that they've gotten from another team, and then less pressure on Roman Wilson and or Calvin Austin to figure it out this year and to give them more time to develop if Calvin Austin's resigned after the season because he's on the last year of his rookie deal.
That's exactly where I am. And it also, you mentioned, that's another thing. That's another variable here, because they got to figure out what they're going to do with Calvin Austin with his deal coming up. So that's the situation. So it's one of those, if you find the right guy, like you mentioned, that has a couple years left on his deal, that you can plug him right in, and now you know where he is, it might make the Calvin Austin decision a little bit easier because you already have Roman Wilson. You might be able to plug someone else in, down the road in the draft and be just fine. It does give you a lot of options. And compared to last season, I know a lot of people wanted to dump on Omar Khan about how the wide receiver market happened last season. And I'm sitting there going, you caught the crest of the wave last year as far as wide receiver markets went. Like the market just went bananas as far as guys getting paid and the trade compensation where guys were going to certain teams for just insane trade compensation. That was as high and as crazy as it was going to get. And I give Omar Khan credit because he could have gotten caught up in that, maybe overpaid for somebody or put a bunch of money out. But just imagine if he would have traded for Brandon Ayuk and Brandon Ayuk gets hurt. Like that's what we're talking about. That's the kind of bullet that, in hindsight, he dodged to be in the position now where it's a lot more advantageous with having draft capital, having cap space, and being in a position where they can make a decision where, if you said the right guy becomes available, they have the cap space, they have the trade capital where they can do that, get a guy in here, and maybe secure things not just for this year, but for the future as well, without making any kind of rash mistakes or overpaying in any way.
I'm right with you there. I want to talk about Aaron Rodgers from a sense of, can the Steelers be more competitive than they have been? I brought this up last week about the win differential. I don't even think that's the right way to look at it. I want to talk about where the Steelers, as they're composed right now, can actually be better this season if things go right their way with a few other aspects. We'll get to that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Josh Taylor, stick with us. We'll be right back. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter here with Josh Taylor of KDK TV. Josh, let's talk about where the Steelers are now. Like, I saw all the graphics started to get put out. Like, okay, the Steelers probably have the third best quarterback in the division. No duh. You got a 3-time MVP or 2-time whatever. However many MVPs Lamar Jackson has. 2-time MVP there. You got Joe Burrow, who is an MVP candidate every season that he plays. And then you got the Cleveland Browns, who their quarterback situation looked just as bad as the Steelers, just with more players before they got Aaron Rodgers. So I think that you look at that, okay, that's obvious. But the thing to me that I do think is a legit question is, how does Aaron Rodgers, or does Aaron Rodgers at all, help them be even just a slightly better team than last year? And the way that I've been framing it, Josh, to try to get people to understand my perspective, is that I think he raises their floor. I think that he is, as a temporary signing, he is going to make less mental and physical errors that guys like Mason Rudolph, even guys like Russell Wilson, have done in recent years, and that will be fine. I don't think he's going to be the guy that magically wins them games. Like I don't think you're going to see him putting up too many Hail Mary passes that just happen to win the game for the Steelers. I mean, that would just be bonkers if he did it again. He's done it way too many times. But I do think where he can be the guy is, again, using the cerebral mindset that he's developed as a quarterback, understanding where to go with the football. That can be the thing that helps the Steelers avoid some of the pitfalls where they've fallen into the last 4 or 5 years, even with Ben Roethlisberger in his last year, in that they have a quarterback who doesn't lose them the game if he's able to play that way. And that's got to be the key. Aaron Rodgers needs to be the quarterback that doesn't lose them games like we saw with Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, at times Mason Rudolph, Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger in his last year, you name it.
There's a reason why when I talk about this team's recent history that I use the same major line of demarcation, and that is week 2 of 2018. That is my major line of demarcation. That was Ben Roethlisberger's elbow injury. There's a reason why I put that there, because for me, after that elbow injury to Ben Roethlisberger, I felt like this team's entire trajectory went in a different direction. And now you're talking about Aaron Rodgers. It's easy to call him the best quarterback this team has had since that major line of demarcation of Ben Roethlisberger post-elbow injury. It's easy to say that. But the reason why I think Aaron Rodgers can make this team better, because he's also the least limited of that entire group post Ben Roethlisberger elbow injury. Why do I say least limited? Because the things that this team has struggled to do in years past are things he's really good at. Being able to diagnose pressure when teams are getting ready to blitz. He's really good at that. As a matter of fact, the numbers show he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league against the blitz. So that's one thing that helps you. So his ability to read at the line of scrimmage is going to help you. The second thing is his ability to know what to do if he needs to check from a run to a pass, from a pass to a run. He knows how to do that. He's very good at it. And not to mention the fact he's in an offense that he was already comfortable with, because Matt LaFleur, the offense that he played with in Green Bay, very similar to what Arthur Smith has been doing. Because remember, both guys were in Tennessee. They were on the same staff at one point. So there's some similarities there. And there may be some things Aaron Rodgers can do that Arthur Smith may not have been able to do previously with a Russell Wilson and a Justin Fields. And one of those things is throwing in the middle of the field, which Aaron Rodgers is really, really good at. Not only is he good at it, he's also very accurate in the short to medium middle part of the field. That's something that's lacked in this offense for half a decade now? So you're talking about a major disparity that's been a problem with this offense, and then to my estimation, has maybe been their biggest Achilles heel in the passing game, because they can't exploit the one thing that defenses can take from them, and that's the middle of the field. But there's also another part of that. If your running game can be sound and your offensive line can deliver, now your running game makes it difficult to defend the middle of the field in the passing game as well. And it also helps that he's got a pretty good tight end to throw to in Pat Fryer. So all these things come together, and you talk about all these limitations that this offense has had in the past few years. Well, he has none of those. The only limitation Aaron Rodgers has is that he's 42 and he's not mobile. But how many mobile 42-year-olds do you know? I'm 43. I'm not that mobile. But then again, I don't have grown men chasing me. But it speaks to the fact that he at least checks off all the boxes that this team has left open over the last 3 to 4 years. So now you set all that to the side and go, well, we know he can diagnose the blitz. We know he can use the middle of the field. We know he's able to make good decisions off play action, and we know he's able to get the ball down the field accurately. So now he can attack all levels of the field. He can attack all areas of the field, each of the thirds. So now you don't have to worry about what are they going to take away from us? What parts of the field are they going to take away? Or how are they going to make our jobs harder? Now they got to account for everything he can do. And that's what changes for me. That's what changes the complexion of all of it, because he takes away a lot of the limitations that past quarterbacks have had over the past half decade.
I agree with all that. However, I don't think it does it to the degree that by itself makes the Steelers that much better. The Steelers thing is this year, I really think it does matter what Aaron Rodgers does. I'm not saying it doesn't. Sure. But if this offensive line can form itself into a above average unit, a consistently above average unit, where I'm not saying they're a top 10 offensive line, but if they're top 14 offensive line, like in that upper half of the league where they're doing really well, they're run blocking well, they're limiting the pressures that Rodgers has to worry about, they're protecting him so he stays upright most games. If they're able to take significant steps forward to be a very consistent unit, And then the defense, their run defense improves from what we saw. The secondary has less mental errors that we saw from last year. And you see, some of those younger guys step up. Joey Porter Jr. at cornerback, Derek Harmon, Caleb Johnson, as rookies. If you see that younger nucleus start to come into the fold this year, that could be the key with a solid Aaron Rodgers and with if TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick, all those playmakers are still there. That could be the key to the Steelers being at least slightly better than they have been the last couple of years, because I do think this can be a double-digit win team again. I do think they can win 10 games. I think they can win 11 games if they get the right things done. And if you win at least 11 games, I don't think you're winning the division this year. I do think that they could put themselves where they wanted to be last year at the end of the season. They wanted to win the division, but if they win that Bengals game at the end of the season, they get to play the Texans in round one. And that could have been a playoff game that if they're handling their business, they could have won reasonably and not needed a Herculean effort like it would have taken for Mason Rudolph to beat Josh Allen or Old Man Ben to beat Patrick Mahomes or most or even last year with the way that they got dogged by the Ravens. That's where I think the Steelers could be if all these other things goes right. And what Aaron Rodgers gives you is he's at least a quarterback that knows what he's doing, knows the NFL. And in fact, it was pointed out, if he beats the Packers with the Steelers this year, he'll be, I think, the fifth quarterback in NFL history to have beaten every NFL franchise as a starter. But if he can be that guy that can just keep the offense steady and let the other playmakers be, and the Steelers have been looking for that kind of a guy since Ben Roethlisberger retired, right, then that could be the difference maker.
For those of you watching on YouTube, you see the horns? If you follow me on Twitter, Josh Taylor HD, you see a lot of that devil emoji, you know what this means. Shout out to the evil trench gang. Chris hit on a lot of points that I've been talking about for probably half a decade. If you can get this offensive line to, like you mentioned, an above average unit that is just adequate, it's just competent at protecting its quarterback. That's just competent, if not competent, even, moderately good at opening up holes for a running back who seems to fit this team's identity as a run game coming in as a rookie in Caleb Johnson. If you can get that happening, and more importantly, if you can get that defensive line sorted out, because it was a big problem at the end of last season, and so were the injuries on the offensive line. Both of those chickens came home to roost last year. So if you can iron those things out, we're talking about a defensive line that's not allowing as much in the run game, that's getting off the field on third down, that's helping get the ball back to the offense with maybe better field position and a better opportunity for your offense to maybe have shorter fields to work with and more room and more opportunity and more space and more time for your running backs and your quarterback to operate. All that stuff adds up. The thing that bothers me when people talk about quarterbacks relative to the NFL, I understand that people say, "Oh, it's a quarterback league." Some people think it's a quarterback driven league. I think it's a quarterback dependent league. But if you can make your quarterback's job easier, then you don't become as quarterback dependent. Because we can talk about Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts all day, the two quarterbacks that played in the Super Bowl. But guess what else? Those guys have guys around them that make their jobs easier. Like Philly doesn't have to depend on Jalen Hurts. Kansas City didn't have to depend on Patrick Mahomes, especially when that last Super Bowl win for Kansas City. Remember, that defense didn't give up a lot of points. They made Patrick Mahomes' job a lot easier, and their offense was not really blowing teams up the last time they won a Super Bowl. If you can make your quarterback's job easier, it probably makes him look a lot better. It probably makes the possibility of winning games a lot better. And I'll give you one more really obvious example. Remember San Francisco 2-3 previous years? And remember what happened when you started injuries to Ayuk and all these different guys start falling off and Trent Williams is done for this season? That team fell off a cliff because they had such an easy task of making Brock Purdy's job easier. And when those guys who made his job easier were gone, he looked a lot more human. So it may not be about how superhuman Aaron Rodgers is, but can you make his job easier so he looks a little bit, not as less human as he might have been 3 or 4 years ago?
I think that's the big question that everyone's wondering about. And you look at Aaron Rodgers' career, in the last 2 seasons, he was 5-12 and 8-9, that he was a full starter. So back-to-back losing seasons. They were also the lowest percentage, or the highest percentage interception percentage number of his career, which, turned around an entire trend as far as where he'd been. They were also the 2 lowest passer ratings that he's recorded as a starter since he became the official starter in Green Bay. So the question is, for the Steelers, is that the new trend? Is that who he's going to be, the guy that's doing a lot worse numbers than what he used to? Or, and I guess that's not a lot worse numbers. I'll be very clear there. They're still, like, his passer rating was still 91.1 or 90.5. They're not terrible numbers, and his interception rates were still below 2.3. So, those are still very good numbers in itself. But if he can just be more efficient, be the efficient Aaron Rodgers that he has been, and the Steelers don't ask that much of him, that's the key to being more competitive as a team and seeing if you as a team can take a step forward in 2025. We got a lot more angles to cover on this in the coming weeks here. Mini camp does start tomorrow. I will be on site. Aaron Rodgers is set to speak to media tomorrow. We won't have that for tomorrow morning's show. We will have more perspective. We're going to talk to Allen Saunders for tomorrow's show. Thank you all for tuning into the Monday edition of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Josh, thank you so much for joining us here. Let people they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Always proud to be back, man. Always glad to be here. Appreciate you. Social media, Josh Taylor HD, best place to find me. As far as my work, CBS News Pittsburgh or KDKA TV, whichever one you want to call it. CBS News Pittsburgh Online, KDKA TV, or your local TV dial in Pittsburgh. As a matter of fact, this is a Monday. You will find me at the news desk during KDKA News at 4 this afternoon, and we'll probably be talking about Aaron Rodgers being at minicamp. I'm sure, Chris, you will have yourself a time, and we will be able to talk about the time you guys are having on the South Side. So this should be fun.
It should be fun. Josh, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thank you all for joining us here as well. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our Monday through Friday episodes of the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the social media handles. Same place everywhere at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette at post-gazette.com. And you can find me here again on the Locked On Steelers podcast, back here tomorrow with more on the Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.